Coming up on UGTV, Board of Commission meeting of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas.
McKiernan.
Here.
Mugia.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters. Here. Philbrook.
Here.
Bynum.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. This evening, our invocation is being given by Sister Therese Bangert of Our Lady and St. Rose Catholic Church. Please stand and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
God, merciful one, you who we call by many names, we thank you for the glorious season of springtime. For those of us who embrace you, Lord, through the Jewish and Christian faiths, we are nearing those days when we celebrate the holiest of days. Please give these unified government leaders and the Wyandotte community the grace to pass over judgment toward understanding, to pass over walls to prefer bridges, to pass over narrow interest in preference for the common good. And as we honor law enforcement this evening, I ask that you bless them with safety, safety for their bodies. I also ask that you bless them with safety for their spirits, that the bruises their work often places on their spirits will not take away their compassion and their love. Finally, merciful God, thank you for your patience with us that often passes over our sins, our transgressions, that we might come to believe that we are all infinitely loved. I pray in the name of our brother Jesus. Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Sister, for giving our invocation. I'll ask the clerk if there are any revisions to tonight's agenda.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, a blue sheet has been distributed. Under the administrator's agenda, we have a new item. Item number 1 is a resolution regarding the memorandum of understanding with the Sheriff's Department and the Fraternal Order Police, Lodge number 40.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize a guest, Julia Steinbach, who's a student at Pittsburgh State, a nursing student in attendance. Would you stand so we can recognize you? Thank you for coming. This evening we have several awards to be presented. First is the presentation of the 2017 AAA Kansas City Community Traffic Safety Awards to be presented to our Sheriff's Department and our Police Department. To make the presentation is Bob Hamilton, Kansas Department of Transportation's Law Enforcement Liaison.
Mr. Mayor, City Councilman, I appreciate the opportunity to be here this evening to present your Police Department as well as your Sheriff's Department the Traffic Safety Awards for 2017. There's 4 law enforcement liaisons across the state, and I consider myself very lucky to have the Northeast section of Kansas because I think I have some of the better law enforcement agencies, if not the best, in the state of Kansas. We work with AAA Insurance to pick out these agencies that we feel have went beyond what they need to in traffic safety to help us save lives. And just to show you why I know these officers sitting here catch a lot of grief whenever they stop someone and issue them a citation. Myself, being a retired law enforcement officer in traffic, I know what they go through every day. But just to show you why they are important, in 2016, we lost 429 lives on our roadways across the state of Kansas. Last year, we lost 462. This year, I'm glad to report, we still lost 81, but at this time last year, we had lost 93. So we are on an upward swing. I just hope we keep going that way. Some of the things that the police department has done that we recognize them for was holding monthly meetings of the community-based traffic safety committee that identifies traffic safety problems and comes up with resolutions. Having departmental policy requiring the use of seat belts, assisting with both the state's routes to school and walking school bus programs. In education, they receive points for their child safety seat technician certification classes in the fitting station they operate. Delivered the Drive Wisely Wyandotte and Junior Police Academy Explorers program, fostering seatbelt use and driving safety, as well as DUI awareness. Some things that we really noticed that we really like at KDOT is adult seatbelt use is on the rise from 83 in 2013 to 85 in 2016. Traffic fatalities fell from 27 in 2019 to 19 in 2016. Alcohol-related crashes fell between 2015 and 2016 from 176 to 108, and speed-related crashes fell between 2015 and 2016 from 630 to 253. I first want to thank you for supporting your police department. I know Chief Ziegler's been through a rough year with the police department, as well as my old department was in Johnson County when we lost an officer to a traffic crash when he was hit from behind by a DUI driver. So at this time, I would like to present the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department, which you have one of 34 agencies across the state, police departments, that's receiving this award with a silver award.
Thank you. Come on, guys. You guys do all the work. Thank you very much.
Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to present the Sheriff's Office with their award. They're one of 11 Sheriff's Offices across the states that's receiving the Traffic Safety Award. And some of the things that they are being recognized for is their monthly meetings on the traffic safety committees, participating in a highly successful teen seatbelt usage program called SAFE, which, by the way, is the fastest growing use of seatbelts that we have in our state right now. Having a policy requiring employees to wear seatbelts, and for high visibility enforcement, implementation of you drink, you drive, you lose, step, and click it or ticket. By the way, click it or ticket's coming up here in the very near future. Excuse me. Wyandotte County Sheriff's Office is being presented their second Traffic Safety Award this year from KDOT. And some of the things that we noticed with them, that adult seatbelt use has grown from 87 to 94% in 3 years. And teen seatbelt use has risen from 64% 5 years ago to 76% in 2016. So at this time, I'd like to present the Sheriff's Office with the Bronze Award for their community traffic safety. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I would ask Chief Ziegler and Major Dungan to please come forward for the presentation of the police awards.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and I'd like to thank the family and friends of the officers who are going to be recognized tonight for being out. Tonight's a good night. Tonight's a night that we get to recognize the good work of our officers. They do some amazing things day in and day out. They chase down bad guys, vehicle pursuits, take drugs off our streets, they seize guns, do a phenomenal job. And then another group of individuals that do an amazing job are the detectives who take those cases, work those cases up, get good prosecution so we can lock our bad guys up for a long time. And those are going to be some great stories that you're going to hear tonight. But one thing that we're really excited about tonight is that tonight you're going to hear some stories about some of our citizens. You know, we love community engagement. We love our citizens getting involved. And we're recognizing 2 citizens tonight who got involved in helping us apprehend bad guys. One of them put himself in harm's way to help apprehend the suspect as he fled from the scene. So it's going to be you're going to hear a lot of great stories, and our officers do a great job day in and day out, and we can't recognize all of them, but these are the things that came to the top that we wanted to recognize our officers for. So I'm going to turn it over to Major Duncan, who's going to MC tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Bach, and Commissioners, I would like to thank you for your time and for being here for the Kansas City, Kansas Department Awards ceremony. It has been a privilege and an honor to be the commander over the award committee and have committee members that feel the men and women of the department and citizens should be recognized for the great work they do. I would also like to thank the family members, because without their loving support of the officers of this department would not be able to accomplish the great work that is done throughout the city every day. So the first 2 awards we're going to present were citizen awards, but neither one was able to make it. So I'm going to read what they did. The first one was going to be going to Robert Boyles. On 11/2/2017, Officer Pleshkin and Steele were in a vehicle pursuit when the vehicle and suspect died just before the 12th Street Bridge going into Kansas City, Missouri. The suspect got out of the vehicle and ran on foot, attempting to make it to Missouri. Officers went into foot pursuit, and this was observed by Robert Boyles. He drove past the pursuing officers and the suspect, got out of his vehicle, tackled the suspect, and held him down until officers could arrive to take him into custody. The vehicle turned out to be stolen auto, and without Robert's assistance, the suspect may have made it to Missouri and escaped from officers. The Kansas City, Kansas Police Department thanks Mr. Robert Doyles for his assistance in apprehending the suspect who was in a stolen auto and putting innocent lives at risk by running from officers in a vehicle pursuit. The second one's going to go to Adrienne Gilchrist. She actually works for the Juvenile Department of the Sheriff's Department, right? On 11/14/2017 at about 10:47 hours, Miss Gilchrist was shopping at the Dollar General at 4505 Metropolitan. While she was shopping, a suspect entered the store and robbed it at gunpoint. The suspect exited the store and fled on foot. Miss Gilchrist got into her vehicle and followed the suspect. Miss Gilchrist flagged down officers and gave them a detailed description of the suspect and the last location that she saw him. Because of Miss Gilchrist's brave actions in keeping the suspect inside, the suspect was apprehended and charged with armed robbery that occurred at the Dollar General store. Sergeant Wolf. Sergeant Wolf is being awarded the Meritorious Service Award. We would like to share with the Commission and family and friends the events leading to their recognition. On 11/14/2017 at approximately 00:19 hours, East Patrol Dispatch advised of a male suspect calling about a roommate who had stopped breathing at 1633 Washington Avenue, apartment 35. Sergeant Wolf advised she would be responding. Upon arrival, Sergeant Wolf made contact with the roommate, who allowed Sergeant Wolf into the room where his roommate was at. Sergeant Wolf quickly checked the victim's pulse, finding it to be extremely weak. She immediately began to conduct chest and knuckle rubs in an attempt to revive the victim. This provided unsuccessful. Sergeant Wolf checked the pulse again and found the victim had stopped breathing. Fearing for the life of the victim, Sergeant Wolf immediately began to administer CPR. Her life-saving efforts continued for approximately 2 minutes, at which point KCK Fire Department and EMS personnel arrived and took over the life-saving efforts of Sergeant Wolf. Because of Sergeant Wolf's quick action in performing CPR until EMS could arrive, it is believed she may have saved the victim's life. Sergeant Golden and Officer Wilcox. Sergeant Golden was unable to make it tonight. He's in Jamaica and he's on vacation. These officers are being awarded a Valor Award. We would like to share with the commission and family and friends the events leading to their recognition. On 3/20/2017, Sergeant Golden was on patrol in west end of the city when a pursuit entered our city from Bonner Springs. The pursuit had originated in Leavenworth County, and during the pursuit, the suspect had fired several shots at officers. Sergeant Golden had become actively involved in the pursuit until the driver bailed from his vehicle at 6035 Everett. When the suspect bailed from the suspect vehicle, Sergeant Golden attempted to go on foot pursuit, but the suspect had turned and pointed his weapon at Sergeant Golden. Sergeant Golden fired 2 shots from his duty weapon, and the suspect fled on foot. Officer Wilcox and K-9 Officer Dax was called and tracked the suspect to 6009 Corona Avenue, where the suspect was found hiding in a vehicle. The suspect refused to surrender and had locked himself in the vehicle. Officer Wilcox put himself in harm's way by gaining entry into the vehicle and deploying the K-9 officer into the vehicle. After being confronted by Dax, the suspect gave up and was taken into custody. Sergeant Golden and Officer Wilcox were nominated for a Valor Award because they had put their lives on the line in attempting to apprehend a suspect after the suspect had already fired several rounds at multiple police officers in multiple jurisdictions. These are officers who will also being nominated for a Valor Award. Captain Nunez, Captain Michael Howe, Officer Dion Dundovich, Officer Edwards. These are going to be tongue twisters. Officer Lil, Kansas City, Missouri Officer Kill, Kansas City, Missouri Sergeant Neal. We would like to share with the community, the commission, family, and friends the event leading to their recognition. On Monday, November 6, 2018, at approximately 20:30 hours, the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department and other law enforcement entities took part in an investigation specifically targeting violent crime and drive-by shootings. Officers received information that the suspects were armed with guns and planning on committing a violent act in the community. Officers quickly mobilized and were able to intercept the suspects in there at 13th and Haskell. Kansas City, Kansas Officer Lewis Edwards and Dion Dundovich were able to box the suspect in using their vehicles. This maneuver placed the officers in a potential dangerous position, but was done to prevent the suspects from escaping and committing the planned violent act. The armed suspects refused to give up and began to ram the officers' cars with their vehicles. Kansas City, Missouri Sergeant Matt Neal deployed a noise flash diversion device into the suspect's vehicle in an attempt to dissuade the suspects from continuing their violent acts. The suspects began to fire their weapons at officers. Officers returned fire to protect themselves and the community. The suspects eventually surrendered and were taken into custody. Because of the brave acts of these officers, the suspects were taken into custody and they were not able to commit the violent act they were going to do within the community. I'm going to call Captain Michael Howell back up. He's also being awarded for a Valor Award for what occurred over at Costco in Lenexa. We would like to share with the community commission, family, and friends the events leading to their recognition. On November 26, 2017, at approximately 11:45 hours, Captain Michael Howell was at Lenexa, Kansas at a Costco retail store. During his off-duty shopping experience, Captain Howell approached the front of the store to pay for his merchandise. He viewed a flood of people running towards the exits and became immediately aware of something was wrong. Patrons were screaming, running, and pushing others as they fled past him. A patron told Captain Howell he's up there pointing a gun at people, saying he's there to kill them. Captain Howell approached a Costco manager, identified himself as a police officer, and acquired a synopsis of what was going on there. The manager quickly told him an armed suspect was in the store. The suspect was described as a white male wearing camouflage jacket, walking north through the main aisle. The deranged man was claiming to be an off-duty U.S. Marshal. The armed individual said he was there to kill people. Captain Howell sought out the person that met the description after he searched the store. Captain Howell found a position of concealment behind a large display in the center aisle. He yelled, "Stop, police, drop the gun." The perpetrator turned towards Captain Howell and pointed a revolver at the officer. Captain Howell immediately fired, ending the threat to himself and all innocent store bystanders. Without Captain Howell's quick thinking and bravery, the suspect could have shot many innocent patrons in the store. The officer was off duty, had no body armor, and no backup. It is clear he took the lives of others as being more important than his own. Despite the danger to his own life, his valiance saved hundreds of people from clear and present danger. Detective Miller and Detective Blackman, they will be awarded the Lancaster Melton Award of Merit. We would like to share with the commission, family, and friends the events leading to their recognition. In mid-June 2017, Detective Miller approached Captain Nunez and asked if he could assist him with surveillance on an active gang house. He specifically said there were several mob gang members running drugs, committing crime, and causing fear into the neighborhood by doing drive-by shootings in the area. After listening to his concerns, he asked for TFO Eric Jones to assist with writing a state wire affidavit and use the narcotics unit for surveillance. Chief Ziegler approved Detective Miller and Detective Blackman temporary assignment to the Violent Crimes Task Force. In August 2017, the operation was launched. The two detectives were working side by side with officers in the VCTF. Both detectives were primarily assigned to monitor the wire for activity. Initially, the mission was to intercept phone conversations of violent crime plans to harm people, but it was quickly discovered that one of the key players, Ronald Kennedy, was shot several days prior to the launch of the operation, which caused disruption within the gang. Captain Nunez explained to both detectives that we needed to shift direction and target the drug trafficking patterns to provide their criminal enterprise. Both detectives agreed and started to target conversations related to drug sales. It was quickly discovered that this group was organized, selling drugs and committing crimes to further increase the drug enterprise. Detectives were able to charge 11 gang members for racketeering through Wyandotte County District Attorney's Office. Currently, 10 of the 11 are in custody and off the streets of Kansas City, Kansas, making it a much safer place. This group was causing fear in the neighborhood and committing violent crimes, but due to the hard work of Detective Miller and Blackman, members of the VCTF and SOU, the citizens of Kansas City, Kansas were much safer. The following detectives and officers took down a violent gang that was selling drugs in our city, involved in several drive-by shootings and at least one homicide. For their reason, they deserve to be recognized for the hard work and dedication to the citizens of Kansas City, Kansas. Will we give our officers and citizens another round of applause? I would like to thank you, Mr. Bach, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, Chief Ziegler, friends and family, and citizens for attending tonight's ceremony. This concludes the award ceremony, and thank you for coming.
On behalf of all the residents, citizens of Wyandotte County, I want to thank all of our police officers and members of our Sheriff Department for their daily sacrifice for our safety. And we invite all those who have joined us tonight to join us in the lobby. There is a reception in the honor of these police officers and sheriff's members. Thank you. That takes us to our consent agenda. Does any member of the commission, staff, or citizen in attendance tonight wish to set aside any item on tonight's consent agenda? At this time, you would need to step forward, state your name and city of residency for the record, and we ask that that item be set aside.
Second.
I would like to have one item set aside, item number 3. I will entertain a motion for approval of the consent agenda, excluding the set aside. We have a motion and a second.
We do.
We do.
Sorry?
We have a motion and a second.
Do a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia. Johnson. Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrick.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
This time that takes us to the set-aside item, consent agenda item number 3, municipal court costs. I'd ask that this item be set aside simply to highlight the good work that the municipal court has done to try and create fair policies and fines for our citizens.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Thank you for setting aside. We're pretty excited about this opportunity for our citizens. We call them our customers. About a year ago, if you were in our standing committee, you would have been introduced to our strategic plan that has governed everything we do for the last 2 years. Our court administrator, Crystal Sprague, introduced us to the idea of having a roadmap, and she even created little note spots so that we quit bugging her with our ideas and we just write the notes where they correspond. So as we go, it was a good idea when you have a lot of lawyers in your life. So we have our key outcome is labeled 1-12, and it's operate with policies and practices that reflect the strengths and need of the community, not imposing undue or unjust financial burden. We believe that fits in nicely with the Board of Commissioners' strategic goal, which is, I believe it's your number 4, improve economic prosperity of all residents, improve financial resiliency. So that's kind of where we look at everything we guide, we come up with ideas. Well, we also identified told you that we would bring in 2017 recommendations to modify the required $50 late fee. As it is now, if you miss a payment with municipal court, our computer system automatically assesses a $50 late fee to every charge. So if you have a traffic ticket with 2 to 3 charges, defective brake light, expired tags, and speeding, that's $150 worth of late fees. So you can come make a $50 payment and you're $100 in the hole. So we didn't think this was fair to our citizens, and we looked at a better way to do this. We also kind of adopted the CFO's idea of where we needed to look at the fines and fees that are levied with our citizens and making sure they actually reflect the cost of our time and our supplies to make sure we're recovering the cost for our taxpayers, but not having undue financial burden on our citizens as well. So we looked at that. We did initially, we used to levy the $50 late fee because we did not have a good computer software system. Times were different. 2013, that all changed for us. We bought a software system that speaks directly with the police department's system. It's the Regis system, and it brought all of the tickets, if they had multiple, the defendants or the citizens had multiple tickets, we knew where they were, we could get them all consolidated. Well, this was an incredible gaining of our time, because the computer was doing what used to take a lot of clerks' time to find all of those tickets. Well, the $50 late fee that may have been appropriate when we were doing all of that time with hourly work is no longer appropriate when the computer is doing it. We chose the $5 fee because when you fail to appear, we are required by law to notify the state that you failed to appear. And if you end up getting your license suspended, we are required by law to reinstate all of your licenses by charge. So we decided that the $5 per charge would be a fair amount because that would be cost mailing, the time, the computer. We did change the fact that you're no longer going to have a punitive $5 late fee. So in other words, it used to be if you showed up at 4 o'clock and you were supposed to be in court at 1, you got the $50 late fee because you were late. Well, now we are tying the late fee to the actual issuing of the warrant, because that is where the time and the energy and the supplies are triggered by the warrant. So if you beat us in to make your payment before we issue the warrant, you are not going to have the $5 late fee assessed. You are only going to have the $5 late fee assessed if you caused the taxpayers any money to be lost. So I kind of got lost because I kind of geek out sometimes on some of that, trying to save some people some money. So that's where we got to the $5. We got to the per charge. We're really hoping this will help assist people pay off their tickets in a more timely manner. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Roll call.
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia. Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Next, we have 2 items under the Standing Committee agenda. These items were presented to the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee this past Monday and received a unanimous vote of approval to be fast-tracked to tonight's meeting. The first item is a lease purchase agreement with Zoll Medical for 13 defibrillators. I'll ask Commissioner Bynum, who chaired the Standing Committee, if she would like to add anything.
No, Mayor, thank you. It's a unanimous passing at the Public Works and Safety Standing Committee.
Any comment?
Second?
Motion? We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Oh, Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia. Johnson. Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Item number 2 are amendments to our fireworks ordinance, and I must recuse myself.
Thank you, Mayor. The second item is an amendment to Section 15-92 concerning fireworks, the regulation for storage and sale of consumer-grade fireworks, distribution of pre-ordered fireworks, and requirements for the issuance of permits for the retail sale of fireworks. This is also unanimously adopted at Standing Committee.
Move to approve.
TV Land, we have Fire Marshal John Droppelman. Would you mind coming forward and giving us a quick synopsis of this? We do have a motion and a second, I believe.
thank you for coming forward to tell us about it.
You're welcome, Commissioners. Basically, we've got 6 changes or amendments to the original ordinance that we're dealing with. Most of them are things that we're actually already doing. When I looked at our ordinance a lot closer, I realized that it wasn't addressed in there. It's just been a process that's been taking place for the last 6 years. The first modification deals with fire extinguishers that are needed at the sales outlets that we have. In the past, we require 4 extinguishers. They've always been dry chemical ones. If you know what those are, you squeeze them and the powder goes everywhere. One of them was required to be water. We're changing that to 2 because, to be honest with you, the dry chems don't work. When the grass is dry, you're trying to put out a grass fire, you get 1 shot and you're done with. The water ones you can use, do a lot more work with them, buy some time for the fire department to get there if there's fire or something encroaching on the tents. It shouldn't involve any extra cost to any of the tent retailers, just switching out one for the other. They typically rent these from one of the local outlets. The second change, which is the biggest one and probably drew the most confusion, is the purchase and storage of larger quantities of these consumer-grade fireworks. Consumer-grade fireworks are not regulated by the ATF. They don't fall under an explosives category. They're just a high fire danger unless somebody's trying to make some type of improvised explosive device out of them, and that would only occur if you were able to obtain large quantities of them. So last year, I put out a voluntary report letter in the information packets that went out to the retailers stating, if you guys are going to sell a large quantity, about 125 pounds or more, fill this out, basically just get their ID, name, address, where they live. And if I notice a large quantities being sold, then maybe I can look into it further and make sure that somebody's not doing something or storing them somewhere where we'd have some issues with. Everybody thought it was a pretty good idea. I think it's necessary to protect the citizens and the public safety responders if we have a fire at a house where this stuff's being stored. We're not out to try and prevent people from having fun or doing anything, but I certainly wouldn't want PD or us or a neighbor to have a fire at their house and then one next door to it start going off without us knowing about it. So we've put that in there. The third item was to address what the state fire marshal issued last year. He issued a ruling on, and I don't know exactly where it came from, but when you get a Boy Scout troop or a community group that's wanting to try and sell and make profit like they would off cookies or popcorn sales or something, you're allowed to make pre-order purchases through one of the vendors, and it could be through one of our tent retailers. They cut a deal with them and say, hey, we'll sell you this product for this price if you can sell this much. The state fire marshal said that the transaction doesn't actually occur until you pick up the product. Well, we wanted to make sure that one person wasn't going to pick up a van load of stuff for everybody that took out an order through him and take that back to a church, a school, somewhere where it's not supposed to be, so that each individual purchaser must go back to that tent retailer with their ticket or whatever they've used to purchase it and pick up the order there. So we're basically just restating what the state fire marshal did, but clarifying it for our city. The fourth amendment was requested by Phil Henderson from Business Licensing. It stated that they need to post a bond so that if the city has to incur the cost of cleaning up one of these tent stands that they don't do, that we revoke their bond and keep that $1,000. And he said it's a lot easier if we do a cash bond instead of a check that they can cancel on the city and get out of paying for it. So that's why we put that in there. The fifth item is one that's been in there for years, but it wasn't in the ordinances when I looked them up, and that's what people do with their leftover inventory. They've been asked to fill this out for years, and I thought it should go in the ordinance to make sure they fill it out, and that's when retailers are done at the end of the 4th of July on the 10 o'clock at night. They need to submit to me what they're doing with those leftovers. Whether they've cut a deal with somebody that's walked up and said, I'll give you $2,000 for what's left on the tables and take off with it in a van to Lord knows where, or send it back to the distributor, which is what most of them do, or store it in a facility that's already been approved by the fire department that meets all the requirements of the NFPA codes to do that. So that one there, we're just catching what didn't get put in the ordinances years ago. The sixth item, the last one that's in there, when we do these inspections, it takes a lot of the inspector's time. And it's amazing that some of these retailers we see over and over again, when they set up their sites, there's always something wrong. Their distances are not correct. They've changed parking areas or done something. And the ones that actually own the tent comply right away. They're there, we tell them, look, you guys are wrong here. Can you fix this? We'll be back and recheck it before you can start selling. The problem we've had is with fireworks stand owners that don't actually reside in Kansas City, Kansas. They reside outside of our city limits, and it's hard to hold them accountable and contact them and find them when we have issues with their stand. So this kind of serves two parts. It's like you show up when we're doing these inspections so you understand, not some third party that you're paying a cut rate price to operate your tent, but that you understand what the rules are and we know exactly where you are. So if we have a problem, I'm going to show up on your doorstep with a summons or close you down. So that's what that one takes into account, is that they need to be present for that initial inspection. And I believe that's it, if you have any questions for me.
I just want to thank you for going through this stuff. I know it's boring for everybody, but it does help make a difference in our lives in Kansas City, Kansas, because we still like to fire off fireworks.
And I understand that, and I don't think this is going to affect anything. It's just going to make us a little safer. Nobody wants to show up or have something go off in our city that was purchased at one of our tents if we can help it. And I think this will hopefully add another layer of protection for that.
Okay, thank you, sir, for everything you're doing to keep us safer. We really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And we have a motion and a second on this item. Roll call.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you.
As stated earlier, we've added one item under the administrator's agenda. I'll ask Administrator Bach to present the item.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the portion of our regular meeting, and I adjourn us in that capacity. I'll call us back to order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees.
Motion to approve both items.
Roll call.
Roll call. Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan. Mugia.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane. Markley.
Aye.
Walters. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right. That concludes our meeting. Go K-State.